Captain Idris Khan sat in the command chair of the Aquila, humanity's most advanced warship, staring out into the vast expanse of space. The stars stretched endlessly before him, twinkling like distant, unreachable dreams. The Aquila glided through the void at near-light speed, heading toward the edge of human territory, where the war with the Volturians raged on. The Volturians, a race of terrifyingly advanced aliens, had wiped out entire colonies in their conquest for dominance. Humanity had fought back fiercely, but the odds were never in their favor. The Volturians had technology far beyond anything humans had ever imagined, from cloaking devices that made their ships invisible to the most devastating energy weapons known to man. Idris' thoughts were interrupted by a sudden chirp from his console. He glanced at the display, seeing an unfamiliar blip on the radar. It was large, far larger than any ship they had encountered before, and it wasn't moving in a normal pattern. It was as though it was deliberately making its way toward them. "Captain, we've got an unidentified object coming straight at us," said Lieutenant Nora, his second in command, her voice tinged with concern. Idris sat up straight in his chair. "What kind of ship is it?" Nora's fingers flew over the controls, trying to scan the object. "I'm not sure, sir. It's not like anything we've seen before. It's emitting a strange energy signature. It's almost as if it's scanning us." Idris narrowed his eyes. "Could it be Volturian?" "No," she replied, shaking her head. "The energy signature is completely different from theirs. It's something else entirely." "On screen," he ordered, his voice calm but firm. He needed to see it for himself. The view screen flickered, and then the image of the approaching ship appeared in front of them. It was unlike any warship he had ever seen. Its sleek, dark shape was designed for stealth, with sharp angles that made it appear more like a predator than a vessel. The surface shimmered with an eerie glow, almost like the ship was made of liquid metal. It moved silently through space, cutting through the stars with a grace that defied its size. "That's not a Volturian ship," Idris muttered, more to himself than anyone else. The ship's design was so alien, it almost didn't feel real. It was too smooth, too perfect. A chilling silence filled the room as the crew stared at the screen. It was a feeling Idris knew all too well. Every instinct told him this wasn't an enemy ship, but the unknown nature of the vessel made it impossible to predict its intentions. Suddenly, a sharp beep from the communications panel cut through the tension. "Incoming transmission," Nora said, her voice tense. "Put it through," Idris ordered. He didn't have time for games. The main screen flickered again, this time with static. Then a figure appeared. At first, Idris thought it was a hologram. But the figure's presence was too solid, too real. The alien who appeared on the screen was tall, with smooth, pale skin and sharp features. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural, almost unsettling light. It was humanoid in shape, but far too perfect, its body unnervingly symmetrical. It was neither male nor female, but something entirely other. The alien spoke in a voice that echoed in their minds, bypassing the ship's speakers entirely. Idris could feel the words press against his thoughts, as though the creature was speaking directly to him. "Human," the alien said, its voice smooth and cold. "You must examine me." Idris felt a chill run down his spine. He glanced at his crew, all of them as bewildered as he was. The command bridge was silent except for the alien's words. No one moved. "Explain," Captain Khan demanded, his voice steady despite the sense of dread that began to grow in the pit of his stomach. The alien tilted its head, as if considering the question. "I am Commander Verith of the Neldori, a race you do not yet know. My people are dying, and we have come to you for help." The words hit like a thunderclap. Captain Khan's mind raced. A new alien race, and one that claimed to be dying. It didn't make sense. The Volturians had been their enemies for years, but now, out of nowhere, a completely different species appeared and asked for help. It was too strange, too impossible. "Why us?" Captain Khan asked, his voice sharp. Why would you come to humanity for help? You don't even know us." The alien's eyes seemed to shimmer with a strange, unsettling emotion. "Because we have studied you," it replied, its voice taking on a colder edge. "Your species is resilient. You are adaptable, capable of surviving where others would perish. We are on the brink of extinction, and we need you to help us before it is too late." Idris' mind was reeling. Who was this alien, really? What did it mean by "help us"? And how could humanity possibly assist a race they had never even encountered before? "How do you want us to help you?" he asked, trying to stay calm despite the flood of questions racing through his head. The alien's gaze fixed on him, and for a moment, the room seemed to grow even colder. "You must come aboard my ship. You must examine me," Verith repeated, the words carrying an almost desperate urgency. "Examine you?" Captain Khan asked, his brow furrowing. "What does that mean?" Verith didn't answer immediately. Instead, the creature seemed to be deliberating, perhaps calculating whether to reveal the full truth. Finally, it spoke again. "My people have a biological flaw, a genetic anomaly that is killing us," Verith explained, his voice tinged with an emotion that was surprisingly human. "Fear. We have searched for a cure for millennia, but our science has failed. However, we have come to believe that your species, your biology, is the key to saving us. We have studied your genome, and we believe it contains the answers we need." Captain Khan's thoughts churned. An alien species that had been studying humanity's biology. That was more than unsettling. It was terrifying. "Are you asking us to cure you?" he asked, still unsure of what this alien wanted from them. Verith nodded, though his expression was impossible to read. "Yes, you must examine me. My biology is unique, even among my people. If your scientists can study me, they may find a way to save us. If not, we will all perish." Captain Khan's eyes narrowed as he processed the alien's words. Something felt wrong. It was too easy, too convenient. There was no telling if this was a trap or if the alien was genuinely seeking help. But the plea in Verith's voice was real, too real to ignore. The Volturians had destroyed countless colonies, and the thought of humanity helping an alien species seemed like an impossible choice. But in war, one didn't always have the luxury of making easy decisions. "You will come aboard my ship, Captain," Verith continued, almost as if reading his thoughts. "Time is running out." Idris glanced at his crew. Lieutenant Nora looked as unsettled as he felt. The rest of the officers were silent, unsure of what to do next. "Prepare a boarding team," Khan said, his voice steady despite the unease building within him. "We're going aboard." The Aquila drifted silently in space, its engines humming softly as it waited for the strange alien ship to approach. Captain Idris Khan stood at the helm, his mind racing with 1,000 thoughts. He had just received the most baffling, unnerving request in his career. An alien commander, asking for a human to examine them. The whole situation felt wrong. There was no way to predict what awaited them on the other side. The Aquila was a masterpiece of human engineering, a ship built for war, but also capable of complex scientific research. It was equipped with cutting-edge technology, and Khan knew his crew was ready for any challenge. But this was different. They had never faced anything like this before. A new species, a desperate plea, and a mysterious, near-invincible alien ship waiting to be boarded. Idris stood before the large viewport, staring out at the alien vessel. The ship was closer now, and he could see it in all its unsettling glory. It didn't look like anything from humanity's known galaxy. Its sleek, smooth surface gleamed in the light of distant stars, reflecting an unnatural, eerie glow. The ship seemed to be made of living metal, its curves and shapes flowing together as though it had been grown rather than built. It was so alien, so beyond anything human technology had created, that it almost seemed unreal. "Captain, we've received a transmission," said Nora, his second in command, breaking his thoughts. She glanced up from her console, her face pale and intense. "It's from the alien ship." Idris nodded, already expecting this. "Put it through." The screen flickered for a moment, and the cold, unsettling voice of Commander Vareth came through. "Human, we are waiting for you." A shiver ran down Khan's spine. The way the alien spoke was calm, almost too calm, as if it was expecting them, as if it knew they would come. "Prepare a boarding team," Khan ordered, his voice steady, though inside, his heart pounded. He didn't trust this alien or its ship, but he had no choice. He had to see this through. "Yes, sir," Nora replied, and the crew sprang into action. They had never boarded an alien vessel before, especially not one this strange. The Aquila's crew was made up of the best of humanity's soldiers, scientists, and engineers, but this was uncharted territory. The air felt thick as they suited up in their advanced boarding gear. Each suit was equipped with a variety of tools, from standard weaponry to devices designed for the unexpected. As they prepared to board, the crew knew they were walking into a situation that could either end in disaster or provide answers to questions no one had thought to ask. Captain Khan donned his suit last, checking the system to ensure everything was functioning correctly. He locked his helmet in place, and the soft hiss of air sealed the suit. His team was ready. He glanced at each of them: Nora, Sergeant James, Lieutenant Park, and Dr. Amelia Hayes, the ship's chief scientist. Their faces were hard to read, but their eyes showed the same mixture of fear and determination that he felt. No one knew what they would find once they boarded that alien ship. As the airlock door hissed open, the team moved quickly, entering the small, dimly lit shuttle that would take them to the unknown. The shuttle's engines hummed to life, and it detached from the Aquila, heading directly toward the alien ship. The tension was thick in the shuttle, and no one spoke. The view through the viewport was breathtaking and terrifying at once. The alien ship loomed ahead, its surface flickering with strange, glowing symbols that seemed to pulse in rhythm with the movements of the vessel. "Hold on tight," Captain Khan said, his voice steady despite the rising unease. The shuttle's engines roared as they pushed forward, locking on to the alien ship's docking port. The shuttle rocked as it made contact, the magnetic clamps pulling them in with a sharp metallic sound. Boarding sequence complete, Nora's voice crackled through their comms. "We're docked." Captain Khan stood up from his seat, feeling the weight of the moment settle on his shoulders. The doors to the shuttle opened, and his team stepped out onto the surface of the alien ship. At first glance, the alien ship seemed like an abandoned ghost vessel. The walls were smooth and metallic, but they shimmered in a strange, organic way. There were no seams, no visible doors, no obvious signs of where the ship began or ended. It was as if the entire ship was one living organism, with its own heartbeat, its own pulse. "Stay sharp," Khan ordered, his voice cutting through the silence. "We don't know what we're walking into." The team spread out, their footsteps muffled by the strange material underfoot. The walls of the alien ship seemed to shift in the dim light, almost as if they were alive, breathing. It was unlike anything they had ever encountered. The air was thick with an odd scent, metallic yet organic, a mix of something alien and ancient. Every sense screamed that this was not a place where humans belonged. Khan led the way down a narrow corridor, his eyes scanning every inch of their surroundings. The ship's architecture was mesmerizing, yet unnerving. The walls curved in on themselves, twisting in impossible ways, as though the very structure was designed to confuse and disorient. Alien symbols were etched into the walls, glowing faintly in the darkness. The light came from no visible source, but seemed to radiate from the very fabric of the ship. "Captain," Lieutenant Park called, his voice shaky but filled with awe. "This ship, it's like nothing I've ever seen. It's as if the ship is alive." Khan didn't respond immediately. He had noticed the same thing. The ship was unnatural, but it was also beautiful in its own way. He couldn't deny that it felt like a living being, something far beyond the cold, mechanical ships humanity had built. There was something both captivating and terrifying about it. They continued moving through the dark corridors, their footsteps echoing in the eerie silence. The deeper they went, the more unsettling the ship became. The walls seemed to pulse, as though they were breathing in rhythm with their movements. The air grew colder, and the feeling of being watched never left. There were no windows, no portholes to look outside. It was as if they were trapped inside the belly of some monstrous alien creature. After what felt like hours, they finally reached a large chamber. The door slid open with a hiss, revealing a massive room filled with strange alien technology. Consoles were scattered across the room, covered in symbols that no one could decipher. In the center of the chamber stood a large, towering figure, Commander Verith. He was not what they had expected. Towering over them, his pale skin almost glowed in the dim light, and his cybernetic enhancements made him look even more intimidating. His body was a mix of organic and mechanical parts, the perfect fusion of flesh and machine. His eyes glowed with an eerie blue light, and his expression was unreadable. "You have arrived," Verith said, his voice calm, though there was an unmistakable tension behind it. Idris Khan studied him carefully, taking in every detail. There was no sign of hostility in the alien's demeanor, but there was something about him that seemed almost too perfect, too calm. It was as if he was hiding something important. "What is this place?" Khan asked, his voice steady, despite the growing sense of unease that had settled over him. "This is my ship," Verith replied, his voice cold yet oddly inviting. "It is not just a vessel. It is a sanctuary, a place where my people have come to seek answers. It is also where you will begin your examination of me." Captain Khan's brow furrowed. "Examine you? What do you mean by that?" Verith took a step closer, his towering form looming over them. "You must understand. My people, the Neldori, are dying. Our biology is flawed, and we have no way of correcting it. But we have studied your species, and we believe you hold the key to our survival." The words hit Khan like a punch to the gut. He had suspected there was more to this request than met the eye, but hearing it from the alien's own lips made it all too real. Humanity was being asked to save a dying species, one that they had never even heard of before today. "We've agreed to help," Khan said, his voice cutting through the tension. "But we need to understand what we're dealing with." Verith nodded, his glowing eyes fixing on Khan. "Then you must examine me. My biological makeup is the key. It will take time. But if you truly want to help us, you must look beyond what you see. Only then can you find the cure." Captain Khan exchanged a look with his team. The weight of the moment was heavy. This was no ordinary mission. It wasn't just about technology or war. This was something deeper, something far more dangerous. "We'll begin the examination," Khan said, finally breaking the silence. "But know this, Commander. If there's more to your request than you're telling us, we'll find out." Verith's expression remained unchanged, but his eyes flashed briefly with something unreadable. "You will find nothing but truth," he said, his voice almost a whisper, "and you will help us, or we will all perish." Captain Idris Khan and his team stood in the heart of the alien ship, surrounded by towering walls made of shifting metal, their movements echoing in the eerie silence. The presence of Commander Verith loomed like a shadow over them, his glowing eyes never leaving their faces. The air was thick with tension as Khan's team tried to process what was happening. They were standing on an alien ship, light years away from home, speaking to a species they had never heard of. And now, the commander was asking them to examine him, a request that seemed both urgent and strange. The room was vast, filled with strange equipment that hummed quietly, almost like the ship itself was alive. There was no real ceiling or floor in the traditional sense. The whole chamber seemed to bend and curve in ways that defied human understanding. The lights flickered and pulsed in rhythmic patterns, and the air smelled faintly of something metallic and sweet, like nothing any of them had ever experienced before. The ship was alive, breathing, and there was no denying it. Commander Verith stood before them, taller than any human and radiating an unsettling calm. His body was a hybrid of organic matter and advanced cybernetics, a seamless combination of flesh and machinery. His face was smooth, almost inhuman, with sharp features that made him look otherworldly. His eyes glowed with an icy blue light, cold and intelligent, as though he could see straight through them. It was impossible to tell if he was truly alive, or if his entire being was a creation of technology, an illusion, perhaps. He was a mystery they were only beginning to unravel. "You will begin the examination now," Verith said, his voice almost hypnotic. "There is much you do not understand, but you will, in time. My people are dying, and you are the key to our survival." Captain Khan's brow furrowed. He had heard the alien story, but something about it didn't sit right with him. A species with such advanced technology, asking humans for help, there had to be more to the story. The words the commander spoke were laden with urgency, but they were also carefully chosen, as if he had rehearsed them. "We don't even know what you are asking for," Khan said, his voice steady but his mind racing. "You want us to examine your biology, to fix a genetic flaw that you say is killing your people. That's a tall order, Commander." Verith's eyes flashed, and for a brief moment, there was something that almost resembled emotion, a flicker of desperation. But it was gone in an instant, replaced by that cold, unreadable calm. "My people, the Neldori, have achieved heights of technological advancement far beyond your own," Verith began. "But even with all our knowledge, we have failed to overcome a biological curse that runs through our veins. It is something that cannot be healed by our own methods. We have turned to you because you are different." "Different," Khan repeated, his voice growing skeptical. "How so?" Verith's expression softened slightly, though it remained enigmatic. "Your species, humanity, has a unique ability to adapt, to overcome obstacles that would destroy other races. We have studied your biology, your resilience. You are unlike any other species we have encountered in the galaxy." Khan took a step closer, his hand instinctively resting on the sidearm holstered at his waist. "And why should we help you? What makes you think we can fix something that even your own technology couldn't solve?" The commander's gaze intensified. "Because we have seen what you can do. We have watched your wars, your conflicts with the Voltorians. We have seen how you fight, how you refuse to yield. There is strength in your species, something we do not possess. If you help us, we will give you knowledge beyond your imagination. Technology that will change the course of your future. We will share everything we know." Idris' mind raced. This was no simple request. Verith wasn't just asking for help. He was offering something in return. Something powerful, something that could tip the balance of power in the galaxy. But there was a catch. There had to be. Nothing in this universe was ever free. "You keep saying that you want our help," Khan said, keeping his voice steady. "But why should we trust you? What if this is some kind of trick?" The alien's expression didn't change, but his eyes seemed to harden, the blue light flickering like a distant flame. "If you choose to refuse, you will condemn us all. My people will die, and your own species will never understand the true cost of ignoring the plea of those who could have been your allies." Khan felt a shiver run down his spine. Verith's words carried weight, but something about the commander's tone felt almost like a warning. It was as if he knew something they didn't, something important. The air around them seemed to grow colder, the weight of the alien's presence pressing on them from all sides. "How can we trust you?" Khan asked, his voice low but firm. Verith stood motionless for a moment, as if contemplating the question. Then, without a word, he raised his hand, and the walls around them shifted. The metal groaned and moved, opening a passageway that led deeper into the ship. "Follow me," Verith instructed, his voice as smooth and cold as ever. "I will show you the truth." Reluctantly, Khan and his team followed the commander through the ship, moving deeper into its labyrinthine corridors. The walls seemed to breathe, their surfaces pulsing with strange energy. There were no sounds of life, No voices, no signs of any other inhabitants. The ship felt empty, abandoned, as if it were a ghost ship drifting through the stars, waiting for its end. After what felt like an eternity, they reached a large chamber. It was unlike any room they had seen before, a vast, circular space with a smooth metallic floor. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, and on it rested a strange, glowing orb. The orb hummed softly, emitting a faint blue light that seemed to flicker in response to their presence. Verith turned to them, his eyes locking onto Khan's. "This is the heart of our people. It is what keeps us alive. But it is also what has cursed us." Khan stepped closer, his curiosity piqued. "What is it?" "This," Verith said, "is the source of the flaw in our biology. It is an artifact we found long ago, a relic of an ancient civilization. We believed it would bring us power, knowledge, and longevity. But instead, it infected us. It altered our genes, changing us in ways we do not fully understand. It has caused our people to deteriorate, to die." Captain Khan's gaze shifted between the orb and the commander. "So this artifact is what's killing your people?" "Yes," Verith confirmed. "And it is why we need your help. Your people have faced diseases and genetic flaws before. You have found cures where others could not. I believe you can help us remove the curse." Khan studied the orb, feeling a strange pull toward it. The light emanating from it was both beautiful and disturbing, a constant reminder of the power it held and the danger it presented. He could see the gravity in Verith's eyes, the pain behind the cold exterior. For a moment, Khan felt a flicker of sympathy for the alien commander, but the skepticism remained. There was something Verith wasn't telling them. There had to be. "How do you expect us to remove it?" Khan asked, his voice calm but filled with doubt. "You say it's a genetic flaw, but this thing is alien to us. We don't even know what it is." Verith took a deep breath, his body almost imperceptibly shifting as if he were gathering strength. "We will help you. We have technology that can assist you in analyzing the artifact. But you must understand, we cannot do it alone. Our science is too advanced for you to comprehend, but yours may offer the missing piece. Together, we may be able to remove the curse." Idris Khan stood silently, his mind running through every possibility. He didn't trust the commander, but there was no denying that the Neldori were desperate. They were not invincible. They had fallen victim to something beyond their control, and they were asking humanity for help in the most vulnerable way possible. But the stakes were higher than ever. If they succeeded, they would not only help save a dying species, but could unlock technology that could change the course of human history. The power that Verith offered was tempting. Too tempting. But it came with risks. Risks that Khan wasn't sure he was ready to take. "We will help you," Khan said, his voice firm, though the doubts still lingered in his mind. "But we need answers. We need to know exactly what we're dealing with before we proceed." Verith nodded, his glowing eyes never leaving Khan. "You will have the answers. But time is short. We do not have the luxury of waiting." The weight of the decision hung heavily on Captain Khan's shoulders. He had just taken the first step into an unknown future, and there was no turning back. Whatever lay ahead, whether it was salvation or destruction, he and his crew would face it together. The tension in the chamber was unbearable. The hum of the alien ship filled the silence as Captain Idris Khan stood before Commander Verith, his mind a whirl of questions and doubts. The alien's plea for help was clear, but the request to trust him was anything but simple. The fate of an entire species rested on the decisions they made now, and every instinct in Khan told him that this wasn't going to be an easy path. The stakes were higher than anything he had faced before. "I need you to understand," Verith said, his voice calm but heavy with urgency, "that the choice you make now will determine the survival of not just my people, but possibly your own as well. The artifact we have found, the source of our curse, is more than just a tool. It's a weapon." Khan looked at the glowing orb, now resting ominously on the pedestal. Its faint blue light pulsed with an unsettling rhythm, almost as if it were alive. He could feel the weight of it pressing on his chest, a constant reminder that this wasn't just some scientific puzzle to solve. This was a matter of life and death, but whose lives were they talking about? His team's, the Neldoris, or even humanity's as a whole? You still haven't explained everything, Khan said, keeping his voice steady despite the unease creeping up on him. If this artifact is so dangerous, why haven't you destroyed it? Why haven't your people done anything about it? Vareth's eyes flashed, the blue light within them flickering like a storm on the horizon. He seemed to hesitate for a moment, before answering, his voice softer, almost reluctant. We tried. Believe me, we have tried. But the artifact, it's connected to us in ways we cannot escape. Destroying it would mean destroying everything we are, our biology, our civilization. It would be a death sentence. Captain Khan clenched his jaw, considering the alien's words. His mind raced as he thought about the human condition. Humanity had always been good at surviving, adapting, and finding a way when there seemed to be no hope. It was why they had fought wars, explored space, and conquered the impossible. But this was different. There was something about this whole situation that felt like they were playing with fire, and it was unclear whether they were the ones in control or whether the flames would burn them all. So, what do you want from us? Khan asked, his voice unwavering. You want us to help you remove the curse, to deal with this artifact. But how can we trust you? How can we know that your offer of technology and knowledge is anything but a trap? Vareth's gaze softened, and for a brief moment, the cold, calculating expression faded. I cannot answer that. Only time will show you if I am telling the truth. He took a step closer, his form casting a shadow over Khan. But I can tell you this, the destruction of the artifact will not come without its own price, and that price may very well be your trust in me. The weight of the commander's words lingered in the air, and Khan's heart pounded as he processed what was at stake. His eyes darted to his team, who stood just behind him, waiting for his next move. He could see the same doubts on their faces, the same uncertainty that mirrored his own. They were all in this together, but this was uncharted territory. There were no clear answers, only risks and consequences. We need to think this through, Khan said, breaking the silence. This isn't something we can just rush into. You've asked us to trust you, but trust isn't something we give away lightly. Vareth nodded slowly, acknowledging the truth in Khan's words. I understand. But time is a luxury we do not have. Every moment we waste brings us closer to losing everything. The words hung in the air like a warning. Khan's mind raced with possibilities, and for the first time since meeting Vareth, he allowed himself to entertain the idea that maybe, just maybe, the commander wasn't lying. What if humanity could help these beings? What if they could solve a problem that even a highly advanced alien race couldn't fix on their own? The thought was both thrilling and terrifying. And yet, the more Khan thought about it, the more he realized that it might be the only way forward. I need more than your word, Vareth, Khan said, his voice low but determined. I need proof, something to show me that we can trust you, and this mission. Otherwise, we're walking away from this, and you'll never see us again. The commander didn't flinch. Instead, he regarded Khan with those piercing, glowing eyes, as if weighing the captain's request. Then, after a long pause, Vareth finally spoke. Follow me, he said, his voice soft but filled with conviction. I will show you why you should trust me. With that, Vareth turned and led them deeper into the alien ship, his movements fluid and purposeful. Khan motioned for his team to follow, and they moved as one, their footsteps echoing in the quiet alien halls. The walls of the ship seemed to close in on them, the strange material flickering as though it were alive, reacting to their presence. The deeper they went, the more the air seemed to shift, the atmosphere growing heavier with each step. They arrived at a large chamber, one that felt different from the others. It was quieter here, almost sacred in its stillness. The chamber was empty, except for a large, circular platform in the center. The platform was unlike anything Khan had ever seen. Its surface was smooth and featureless, but it hummed with a quiet energy, as if it were the heart of the ship itself. Vareth stepped onto the platform without hesitation, his form glowing in the dim light. He turned to face the humans, his expression unreadable. "This is the core of our curse," he said, his voice low but firm. "This is where everything began." Khan's brow furrowed as he studied the platform. It was clear that Vareth was serious, but what was the connection? What was he showing them? "This is where we found the artifact," Vareth continued. "It was buried deep beneath the surface of a dead planet, a relic of a long-forgotten civilization. We brought it back, believing it would make us stronger, but it did the opposite. It infected us, changed us in ways we couldn't understand. And now, our entire race is doomed unless you can help us remove it." Khan's heart skipped a beat. This was more than just a simple genetic flaw. It was a curse that had been placed upon the Neldori by something beyond their control. The artifact was a force of nature, something older and more dangerous than they had imagined. But Vareth's words were more than just a plea for help. They were a challenge to test their trust, to see if humanity was truly capable of doing what even the most advanced alien species could not. Captain Khan stepped forward, his team following close behind. He looked at the platform, then back at Vareth, who stood with a quiet intensity. The question was no longer about whether they could trust the commander. It was about whether they could trust themselves. Could they do this? Could they remove the curse and save an entire species from extinction? For the first time, Khan felt the weight of the decision pressing down on him, but his resolve hardened. He knew there was no turning back now. The fate of 2 species rested in his hands. "We'll do it," Khan said, his voice steady, though the gravity of the moment settled deep within him. "We'll help you, but you need to understand, this will be a test for both of us. We'll need full transparency. No more secrets." Vareth's eyes flashed with something that could have been relief, or perhaps determination. "I will show you everything," he said. "But you must understand, we do not have the luxury of time. The longer we wait, the more irreversible the damage becomes." Captain Khan nodded, his mind already turning to the next steps. They had a long road ahead of them, but they had made a choice, and now they would see if they could truly trust the alien commander, or if they were walking into something far darker than they had imagined. The atmosphere on the alien ship had become tense, thick with the weight of decisions made and promises spoken. Captain Idris Khan stood in front of the glowing pedestal, his hands resting on the cold, metallic surface. His thoughts raced as he considered everything he had learned so far, everything that had led them to this moment. The Neldori story, the artifact, the curse that plagued them. All of it seemed too impossible, too dangerous. And yet, they had agreed to help. They had made a pact with the aliens, believing that they could trust them. Or, at least, that's what Khan had believed. But now, something didn't feel right. He couldn't shake the feeling that they had walked into a trap, a carefully laid out snare that would destroy them all. The more he thought about it, the more the pieces began to fall into place. It wasn't just the Neldori's desperation that bothered him. It was the way Vareth had acted, the way the alien commander had pushed them forward, urging them to hurry, to trust him. Khan felt like they were being manipulated, but by what or whom, he wasn't sure. "Commander Vareth," Khan said, breaking the silence that had settled over the room, his voice steady but filled with suspicion. "We've followed you this far, but I need to ask one more time. Are you truly telling us everything? Are you certain this is the only way to save your people?" Vareth stood across from him, unmoving, his glowing eyes locked onto Khan. There was no hesitation in his gaze, no doubt in his expression. But something about him, the way he stood so still, as though he were waiting for something, made Khan's gut twist with unease. "You have my word, Captain," Vareth replied, his voice smooth, almost rehearsed. "The artifact is the key to our survival. If we do not remove it, we will all perish. My people will die. I cannot afford to let that happen." Khan's instincts were screaming at him. There was a flicker in Vereth's words, a subtle shift in his tone that hinted at something darker, something he wasn't revealing. But there was no way to be sure, not yet. And so, he reluctantly chose to push forward. "We'll begin the procedure," Khan said, nodding to his team. "But if anything goes wrong, we stop." "Understood." Vereth's eyes gleamed with a cold, calculating light. "Understood." As the team worked, setting up the equipment to analyze the alien artifact, Khan couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The ship's walls seemed to pulse around them, its metallic surfaces reflecting the blue light of the orb in strange, distorted patterns. The silence that filled the chamber was oppressive, as though the ship itself were holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. "Are you sure this is going to work?" Lieutenant Alina Moretti asked, her voice tight with anxiety. She was one of Khan's most trusted officers, but even she seemed uneasy about what they were attempting. "We don't have a choice," Khan replied quietly, his eyes never leaving the orb. "This is what we came here for. We either help them, or we leave them to their fate." Alina didn't answer, but Khan could see the doubt in her eyes. She wasn't the only one who felt uneasy. The entire team was on edge, and for good reason. They were dealing with something far beyond their understanding, and every instinct told them that the Neldori weren't telling the whole truth. As the device was calibrated, and the initial scans of the artifact began to come through, there was a sudden shift in the air. The lights flickered, and the hum of the ship grew louder, as though something deep within the ship was waking up. Khan's hand instinctively went to his weapon, his senses on high alert. "Captain, you might want to see this," one of the crew members said, his voice trembling. "The scans, they're not what we expected." Khan hurried over to the console, his heart racing. He looked at the data streaming across the screen. The artifact wasn't just a biological curse, it was something far worse. The readings were off the charts, unlike anything they had encountered before. The energy levels were immense, and as the scans continued, it became clear that the artifact was not just an ancient object. It was a weapon, a highly advanced, sentient weapon. This isn't just an artifact," Khan murmured under his breath. "It's a living entity." Before he could process the implications, a voice echoed through the chamber, cold and unforgiving. "You've made a grave mistake, Captain Khan." Khan spun around, his hand moving to his weapon as the voice echoed again, louder this time. "Commander Vereth," Khan called out, but there was no answer. Then the truth hit him. A sudden realization struck, like a lightning bolt of clarity. Vereth had never been truly honest. The artifact wasn't the cause of the Neldori's suffering. It was the Neldori's true power, their weapon, their curse. It was controlling them, infecting them, and twisting them into something that would eventually destroy them. And Vereth, he had known all along. But the revelation came too late. The walls of the chamber shifted, revealing hidden doors that opened like the jaws of a great beast. A low, mechanical whirring filled the room as the ship's interior transformed. The quiet, calm ship they had entered was no longer the same. It had changed. It had awoken. "Captain Khan," the voice called again, but now it was coming from every direction, surrounding him. "You were never meant to succeed. You were never meant to help us. You were a test, a means to an end." Khan's heart stopped as he turned to see Vereth standing before him. But this wasn't the same Vereth he had spoken to before. The commander's body had shifted, his form warping in ways that were impossible to explain. His once humanoid figure now seemed more like a machine, a grotesque hybrid of organic and mechanical parts, glowing with dark energy. The transformation was terrifying, and in that moment, Khan realized that everything had been a lie. "You've been playing us all along," Khan said, his voice low and filled with fury. "This was never about saving your people, was it? This was about using us. You wanted us to do your dirty work. You wanted us to unknowingly power up your weapon so that you could destroy us. Vareth, or whatever he had become, smiled, though it wasn't a smile that any human would recognize. It was cold, cruel, and twisted. You are correct, Captain. Your species, your kind, have such potential. But you are nothing compared to what we have become. We are more than just a race. We are the future. And you, Captain Khan, you were never meant to be part of that future. You were simply a stepping stone. Khan's blood boiled as he realized the full extent of the betrayal. They hadn't been helping the Neldori. They had been empowering them, unwittingly giving them everything they needed to succeed in their plans of domination. And now, they were about to become the very tools of the Neldori's destruction. Alina, get to the ship, Khan shouted, grabbing his comm device. Everyone, prepare for extraction. We need to leave now. But it was too late. The alien ship's walls locked into place, sealing them inside. The once quiet, mysterious ship had now become a prison, and the Neldori, led by Vareth, had revealed their true intentions. This wasn't just a betrayal. It was a full-scale assault, a calculated move to eliminate any hope of stopping them. Khan and his team scrambled, but the ship was already fighting back. The chamber they were in began to warp, the walls closing in, the lights flickering violently. It was as though the ship itself had turned against them, powered by the very weapon they had been trying to understand. Vareth's cold laugh echoed through the chamber as the final blow was delivered. You were never supposed to win. This was always the plan. The artifact was only ever the beginning. With a final, resounding crash, the ship's systems came online, and the battle for survival began. The sound of metal groaning under immense pressure filled the chamber as the alien ship's walls began to shift and warp. Captain Idris Khan's pulse raced as he stood at the center of the chaos, his mind struggling to process the sheer scale of what had just happened. Vareth's true nature had been revealed, and with it, the depth of the deception that had been woven around them. The ship was no longer a place of mystery. It was a death trap, designed to destroy them all. We need to move. Now. Khan shouted, his voice cutting through the panic. His team scattered, trying to find any possible way to escape the growing chaos. Alina Moretti, his second-in-command, had already begun to work on a backup escape route, while the rest of the crew prepared to defend themselves. But the ship's sudden transformation had left them no time to plan. It was clear that Vareth had not just betrayed them. He had manipulated them into awakening something far more dangerous than anyone had anticipated. We don't have much time, Khan barked, pulling his gun from his holster. Vareth's controlling the ship. We have to stop him before this place becomes our tomb. The walls of the chamber were vibrating now, their once smooth surfaces covered in veins of dark, pulsing energy. The atmosphere had thickened, and the air was dense with the smell of burning metal. The alien ship was alive, almost sentient, reacting to the threat like a beast protecting its territory.